Hello, children. So, our topic for today is the heredity, which is talking about the genes and behavior. So, firstly, to understand what is genetics, very important concept, you know. So, coming to the definition, it actually means the study of the inheritance of physical and psychological characteristics from the ancestors is referred to as genetics. Please understand, children, the two keywords here: physical and psychological characteristics. So, it is not just the physicality that you are inheriting from your forefathers, you know, but it is also, your, so to say, the psychological characteristics that are coming to you. Of course, it's coming to you through your grandparents, through the grandparents of your parents, and of course even through your parents for that matter. So it's just traveling in the family, which is the two things: the physicality and of course the psychological aspect. These two together are the core genes. So at times people misinterpret and they feel that genes are simply how you look, or probably in terms of your more of your physical features. But I would say it's also about, the psychological aspects, which could be even in terms of how amicable you are as a person, how uh, you know how extrovert you could be, how open you are to things, in terms of expression of your views, or how sensitive are you, or how compassionate you are. So even the psychological aspects are being inherited, and of course there are many other things, many other psychological aspects and the physical features that are just your own. It's not entirely what you're getting from your parents, not everything. There are so many things that we are learning and therefore are evolving with every passing day. So when we talk about children, especially genetics, so the child will always have a combination of genes, which he's receiving from his both the parents. So both the parents are equally responsible. You have your mother and your father responsible for it, and of course they too have inherited genes from their parents, and their parents have inherited from their parents. So it's like, how it's flowing in the family, the genes, so to say. So if you talk about a child, so a child in the beginning is just a zygote cell. So what's a zygote? A zygote is the mother's ovum, which has been fertilized by the father's sperm. So zygote is a very tiny cell, children, and there's a nucleus which you will find right in the center of the zygote, and in the nucleus are the chromosomes, which are playing the most vital role to basically, define, or so to say, make us understand or make the role of these genes even more evident. It's entirely the chromosomes which are responsible. So, chromosomes, of course, they have all the genes and they have been inherited, from each of the parent in equal numbers, so to say. And when we talk about genes, children, genes basically, again, they are the very basic unit of heredity, and they are the blueprints, you know, for the cells to reproduce themselves. They are the blueprints. And they are also manufacturing the proteins to maintain life, you know, and they are actually containing all the instructions, children, and they are having all the instructions in order to produce specific proteins, and these proteins are regulating the body's physiological processes. and the expression of the phenotypic traits. You know, so when we talk about the genes, children, of course, the genes, they are of two types. I've already shared right in the beginning when we talked about genetics. There are two terms being highlighted there, the physical and psychological aspects. But when we come to understand what are these physical and psychological aspects, we will understand it better when we go down to the types of genes where we have the phenotype and the genotype. So, phenotype are mostly the observable characteristics, the observable traits, the body build of a person, the physical strength of a person, how intelligent the person is, and, other behavioral characteristics, so to say, you know, all of that, I can see very well, that is something which is very clearly evident, very clearly observable to me. They are the phenotype, observable characteristics. When I talk about the genotype, they are basically the traits, please understand, they are the traits which can be passed on to the offspring through the genetic material, you know the biological and psychological characteristics, that basically uh, a man would have, they are a result of the genotype inheritance, and of course along with the phenotype. So both phenotype and genotype. Phenotype is more of the observable, and the genotype is more of the genetic material in terms of, the traits that have been passed on from the parents to the offspring. Now, when we move on to the chromosomes, of course, the chromosomes, if you see, children, chromosomes, basically they are the hereditary elements of the body, and they are thread like structures, and they are present in the nucleus. And of course, if we see, when we talk about the organism, in all we have 46 chromosomes, and so 23 have been inherited from the mother, and 23 have been inherited from the father, you know and when we talk about, of course, the 23rd pair, that's actually, you can say, determines the sex of the so to say, the zygote, or the final cell that's formed because of the ovum and the sperm coming together, the zygote, it is determined, the sex is determined by the 23rd chromosome. So how it works is that, when we talk about the 23rd chromosome of the sperm of the male, it can either be, children, X, or it can be Y, right? And if the X type sperm, if it fertilizes the egg cell, you know, then of course the egg cell is always X, right? So when the X sperm will fertilize the egg cell, it will be XX, and which means that the child will be a female. But if a Y type of a sperm will fertilize the egg, so the egg always being X, and now if the sperm is Y, it becomes XY, and then it will be a male. So this is something, of course, which you need to remember. And when we talk about, the chromosomes, what are they composed of? They are composed mainly of the substance which is called the deoxyribonucleic acid, which is called the DNA. And the genes, if you see, are all composed of the DNA molecules. So the two genes which are controlling the development of each trait, you know uh, of course, it is at the same locus. If you see the diagram, you will understand. And so one on each chromosome of a particular pair, So the sex chromosome, the pair of the chromosome, is going to actually determine the basically the the sex of the zygote cell. So that I've already explained you that how is it determined, and I've very clearly explained it to you, and you can go back and also give it a reading so that it becomes even more clear to you. So this was all about the human chromosomes, the genes, the genetics, the heredity. So, yeah, so we'll start with the next topic very soon. Thank you, children.